Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to this Health Flicks presentation. And it's so moving to be with all of you from all parts of our beloved planet Earth. For me, here in southwestern Massachusetts, in the Berkshire Mountains in the United States, it's about just past lunchtime, and it's a beautiful, sunny, clear, almost warm day. It's about 50 degrees. And because we're in a part of the country in the United States where it's sometimes gray and gloomy, we're also grateful to have this beautiful sunny day. How lucky are we to be able to join together in community and support one another, reach out to one another and connect to one another, to empower ourselves to get through this incredibly tragic and frightening time. We do have the chance to look at this as yoga practitioners, which I know many of you are, because you're tuning into a program on meditation, to look at this whole experience as an opportunity, as a teaching. It's almost as if this is an example or an opportunity for pratyahara, which in yoga means to turn inward, to look in and answer the question, who are we really? You know, all our yoga practices, no matter where you are, who your teacher is, what part of the world you're practicing in, every yoga practice is about learning to pay attention. It's also called mindfulness. You know, paying attention is being present, being in relationship with what is. And what is, as now, isn't always a great place to be. We love being in relationship with what is when we're comfortable and happy and it's easy. But sometimes what is difficult and challenging and painful, as what we're experiencing now. So why do we want to be always with what is? Think about that. This moment is where life happens. All of it. This is where, as yoga practitioners, we cultivate mind-body awareness. Who am I right now? What is going on for me right now, right here? In the path of classical yoga, which is also called the 8-limb path, you know, we learn that yoga, the experience of yoga comes when we learn how to quiet the mind. And in the Yoga Sutra, which is our text for classical yoga, it tells us yoga is the stopping or the cessation of the fluctuations or thoughts of the mind. And we find that's not so easy to do. And really, that isn't the definition of yoga. That sutra is telling us that yoga is what happens when we're able to quiet our mind. How do we do that? Again, the Yoga Sutra tells us that we do that through something called abhyasa, or practice. Practice is defined as making an effort to keep our mind steady, to be here, to be present with what is. That's not such an easy thing to do, but we begin that formal practice through the practice of asana. We begin developing that skill through the formal practice of asana. What happens in our asana classes when we take a yoga class? We learn to focus on our breathing, our alignment, our postures, our body. We begin to notice when we're not paying attention, when the breath falls off, This is all the beginning of training the mind to be present with the body. And as we become more skillful, we begin to develop the ability to take that skill out into the world. That not only we realize that if practice means making an effort to keep our mind steady, then we can practice all the time. So we return to our formal practice to further develop the skill. And the more we develop the skill, the more we're able to use that in the real world when chaos is swirling around us. And we can maintain equipoise and maintain balance. And once we've begun to train in asana, we move through these 8-limb path, through these 8 limbs on the path to the practice of meditation. Meditation is just continuing the work we started in our asana classes. It's continuing to train us in attention, to be present, to focus on the here and now. So today we're going to do a short, about a 15-minute meditation. And before we start, there are just a few things I'd like to say about what is this thing we call meditation and why do we want to do it? First of all, sometimes we think that during meditation, something fantastic and magical is supposed to happen. Really, meditation is very simple. It's very basic. We close our eyes, we sit, and we watch. What is going on with me right here, right now? What is arising? Often we think, oh, I'm so bad at this. Everybody else must be better than I am. I'm a terrible meditator. I can't stop my thoughts. But we learn that, as Tara Brach likes to say, thoughts are not the enemy. We're not trying to stop thought. We can't suppress thought in the same way that we can go out on a camping trip and pack up our sleeping bag when we're leaving and shove it back into the rucksack. If thoughts arise, we are thinking beings. So trying to stop thinking is not our goal here. We're simply allowing ourselves to sit and see if we can watch our thoughts. So as you're sitting, and once we begin sitting, you want to really be on the lookout for any long narrative that catches you up about how bad you are at meditation and how you shouldn't be thinking this, shouldn't be thinking that. We simply want to allow the thoughts to arise and move through our path of vision. Turn off my inbox. We aren't trying to cultivate good thoughts or to push away bad thoughts. We really aren't trying to do anything except watch. It's important also that we cultivate an attitude of gratitude, that we bring a positive state of consciousness before we approach meditation. So we come in thinking, how lucky am I get to meditate today. Often, we'll say to ourselves, oh, I have to meditate. No, I get to meditate. I get to spend 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes just watching how I go through the universe, what is taking my attention? What am I giving my energy to? And as we watch, we begin to see what is taking our attention. Not good thoughts, not bad thoughts, just thoughts. One more thing I wanted to say before we started is that I'm going to use bells, and we'll begin the meditation with 3 bells. We'll end with 3 bells. And in between, there will be a couple interval bells. And let the bell be a call to return to your anchor, return to this moment. And what are we going to use for our anchor? I'm sure some of you have existing meditation practices, or you use a mantra or your breath. Today, we're just going to focus on the breath. Watch the breath as it moves in and moves out. Our breath is going to represent our innermost self that's going to call to us every time we're carried off and distracted, to come back to home base, to come back to our anchor, come back to our true self. There are 3 ways that we can be distracted. We can be distracted by a thought that pops up. We can be distracted by a sound. Oh, email just came in. Wonder who that is. Maybe I should look and see. I thought I turned that off. Thinking. Come back to the breath. There will always be sound or thought or sensation to distract you. Even if you hibernate in a cave in the Himalayas, there will still be creatures that will crawl around and disrupt your meditation. So let any sound, wherever you are, if you're in the city or the country, maybe it's raining, maybe you're in the city, you hear traffic, maybe you're home. Most likely we're all home. We hear family members moving. Let those sounds just be sound. Again, like thought, not good sound, not bad sound, just sound waves that float through the consciousness. Taking our attention for a second, we notice and we come back to our anchor, our beloved breath that is always here for us, always present. So set your intention to be grateful for this time. Remind yourself, no judgment, no negative self-talk. You're here, you're doing this. This is already a success. So come to a comfortable seated position. If you need to make any adjustments, go ahead and do it now. Take a nice deep breath. And whether you're sitting in a chair with your feet flat on the floor, on your meditation cushion, or you're lying down, and just listening to my voice, see if you can watch with an alert, see if you can sit with an alert and relaxed attention. Closing your eyes now, if you like. And becoming aware of your body, noticing how the weight of your pelvis is pressing into the floor, the chair, the cushion underneath you. Perhaps the way your feet are connected to the floor, or your legs are folded in front of you. Let your hands rest gently in your lap or on your knees. Lift the heart, let the spine be long and tall. Let your shoulders relax and roll back. Perhaps see if you can have awareness of your nervous system. How are you feeling? Are you slightly elevated, slightly overstimulated, slightly understimulated? Let your attention begin now to rest on your breath. Once more, take a nice deep breath. Long, slow, extended exhalation. And then let your breath settle into natural breathing pattern. Following the breath in and out. Breathing in, I know that I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know that I'm breathing out. And let that connection between your attention and your breath be your anchor. Let that be home base. In and out. Breathing in, I'm aware of my body. Breathing out, I'm aware of my body. Breathing in, I'm aware of the world around me. Breathing out, I'm aware of the world around me. Without thought, without judgment, just through present moment awareness. In and out. Breathing in, I'm aware of all those around the world sitting with me, meditating at this very moment. My Sanga, my community, my support, my connection. Breathing out, I am aware that I am one with all beings everywhere. Breathing in, I relax my body. Breathing out, I relax my body. Thinking. Notice the thought. Come back to your breath without judgment, without examination. Just notice. If you are waiting for something really interesting to happen, let this moment be interesting enough. Distracted by a sound, just notice how that might trigger a thought. Notice the thought. Notice your response to the thought. And then let it pass by as you might watch the clouds float by on a beautiful spring day or a beautiful autumn day. Come back to your anchor, in and out. Perhaps connecting to a place in your body where you feel the movement of your breath. At the belly or the heart center or the tip of your nose, just pick one. And rest there with your awareness. Remembering that our goal is not to stop thought. Our goal is to train the mind. Our effort is to be aware of the difference between being lost in thought, carried off into the past or the future, and being present, being awake. And perhaps as you refocus your attention on the breath, for one breath, you have that moment of peace. You touch peace where you're here fully. And as you exhale, you are present fully in the moment. And then you see a thought arising and you watch it come up. Notice how it takes shape and pulls at you, pulls at your attention, wants you to climb on the bus and travel off with it. And perhaps you do, and you get lost. And then you notice you're on the bus. You leave the bus and you come back to your anchor, come back to home base. Becoming aware of the difference between being lost in thought and awake. That's all. This is it. This is practice. Effort towards steadiness of mind right here, right now. Continue to sit with your eyes closed for a few more moments. Perhaps deepening your breath if you like, and just feeling good about yourself. Feeling good about your discipline, about your ability to do this, to make the effort, to join the global community in an effort to evolve and create peace and harmony. And then I always like to kind of have a moment of transition from meditation place to back out in the world place. So you might want to reach to your right knee with your left hand, take a big inhale and exhale as you twist to your right. And do the same thing to the other side, still with your eyes closed. Big inhale and exhale, twist to the left, and then arch back. Ooh, and round forward, flexing the spine. And then before you open your eyes, take a moment to rub your hands together. And then rest your eyes in the palms of your hands. Preparing yourself to slowly open your eyes, taking your hands away, and greeting the day and one another. Simple. We're going to have about 15 minutes now for questions and hopefully some answers. And one thing before we get started with that, it's really important not to be too ambitious in your meditation program and your plans. If you can only sit for 5 minutes, that's terrific. Just do that much. And you can slowly, as this gets more comfortable for you, build. So the roosters at the farm next door, build your endurance just as you do in asana. Same thing in meditation. Let's see now if we have Q&A. Thank you all for being here. You know, it's important that we find a way to manage this challenging time. As I started to say at the beginning of our time together, you know, it's almost, for those of you that practice classical yoga, which is this 8-limb path that is universal, non-dogmatic, no ideology, completely an experiential and see for yourself kind of path. You know, I can't really teach you yoga, and neither can anybody else. All we can do as yoga teachers and meditation teachers is to give you a map. Say, look, here are the instructions. Follow these instructions and see what happens. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work. There's no dogma or ideology you have to accept before you can practice meditation or before you can practice yoga. All right, I see we have some questions coming in now. Thank you, Christina. Thank you for this gift. It's a gift that was passed to me from my teachers. I started my meditation practice in 1971 in California in the United States, and had two wonderful teachers. Munishri Chitrabhanu, who was a Jain monk who came to the United States that year at the invitation of Harvard Divinity School to share the Jain teachings, which are very, very, very similar to the Buddhist teachings. My other meditation teacher was Choyam Trungpa Rinpoche, a Tibetan Buddhist who also came to this country to share the teachings of that tradition. So we're so lucky to have these practices. You know, it's such a gift to have found teachers who have cared enough about us to, who have cared enough about us to turn us on to these yoga practices. I always like to say to my students, remember who brought you to the dance. Remember, always important to have respect and honor your first teacher. I taught for many years, for 22 to be exact, in New York City. And I was the wellness director at the time of the New York Roadrunners Club. So I worked with a lot of athletes and very busy professional people. And I used to tell them when they first came to yoga classes, you know, this isn't a stretch class. If you want a stretch class, go to the gym. You know, and often we come to yoga because we think, we're kind of tight. We want to stretch out a little bit. And eventually we learn that yoga is a lot more than stretching. That yoga, as I said right off the top, is about learning to pay attention to what is going on right here, right now. And as difficult as that may seem to be in a time like this, when we're globally being connected by a catastrophic, invisible enemy, this tiny little coronavirus that has us all just staying home and caring for one another and reaching out globally to people we may never know or see, but caring that everyone makes it through this. Now, this is a huge teaching. I don't believe this is a mistake. I think this is Mother Earth kicking back, telling us, look, I tried to give you some easier messages and not so easy at all that, like hurricanes and floods and fires, and yet you've been going on your merry way, overpopulating, polluting, pilfering, business as usual, and now I had to get out the big guns and really give you a heavy teaching, and it's a tough one. Hopefully now we'll begin to learn to pay attention, learn to consume less, learn to care more, learn to recognize, all of us slowly evolving, that when one of us is hungry, we're all hungry. So tell me out there, where are you? Is anyone watching out there? Where are you guys? Is anyone watching from Texas or Australia? or the Philippines, or South Korea, or Chile, in the UK. Great, thank you. I'm going to be in London, I hope, in September, teaching at a wonderful yoga studio called Try Yoga. Peter is in the UK also. Thanks for being here, Peter. Thanks for caring enough to join in and motivate yourself and be inspired. And it's important that we as teachers, as community leaders, as leaders in our community, acknowledge what's going on and yet continue to keep the fire going, keep our passion going to overcome this challenge. Often we ask ourselves, how can we have a goal in our practice? How can we be inspired to evolve and to grow and to change, and at the same time not fall into striving and straining and grasping and being greedy about making progress? How do we find that balance between effort and ease? In the Yoga Sutra, Patanjali, the author of that text on classical yoga, tells us that both of those aspects of our life, sukha and sthira, ease and steadiness, need to be present. How do we surrender to this moment, accept, as I said earlier, accept what is, and at the same time work to conquer this? So in this moment, I'm accepting the reality of my environment. In the next moment, I can be inspired to stand firm and take action to change the trajectory of what is in this moment. Does that make sense? So accepting what is doesn't mean being passive. It doesn't mean lying down. I'm going to move this over a little. It doesn't mean lying down and letting the world run us over. It doesn't mean being completely sorry, I got distracted by a question. Is it harder for people who have experienced depression to start meditation? Wow, what a great question. Probably so. Pulling yourself out of that, it might take some professional help. It might take, when you're caught in quicksand, when you're stuck in the mud, the first thing you have to do is acknowledge that you're stuck in the mud and extracting that even one toe. Once you make that break and you can take 1 minute to sit and watch, then it's easier to get the next toe out and the next toe out. Well, we have people joining in now from Scotland and Paris, France. Doesn't it feel great to be connected? Isn't this a wonderful feeling? Can't we agree that this is the benefit of this extremely challenging time? I hope so. We have a few more minutes, but I want to just continue with that idea of accepting what is does not mean passive acceptance. It means active acceptance. Accept, take action. Accept, take action. Lots of things going on in the world long before this coronavirus hit us that we're kind of tough to accept. A lot of pain and suffering and war and injustice everywhere. And yet there are millions and millions and millions of people working for the greater good, working to save the planet, working to reverse overpopulation, deforestation, pollution, the destruction of the oceans, the destruction of the earth and the soil, to make clean, good, wonderful, healthy, plant-based food available to all. Keep up the great work, you guys. How are we doing on time? We have 2 minutes left. How about one more question or one more comment? All right, I'm going to move this over a little bit so I can see it. Thank you for the opportunity. It's kind of hard to say thank you to such a challenge. Hard to say I'm grateful for this moment. But again, as I said at the beginning, this is almost like the fifth limb of classical yoga. After we're finished with asana and our breathing practices, we come to the fifth limb, which is pratyahara, which is that time when we turn inward and look in. And that leads us into the inner limbs of concentration and meditation. So start easy with your meditation practice. Be gentle with yourself. 5 minutes, and use your asana practice to become ready for meditation, to become more comfortable, to become able to sit for longer and longer periods of time. Thank you so much for being here. I feel so connected to all of you, and you have really all made my day. Here in the southwestern corner of Massachusetts in northeastern United States, around the other side of the globe from all of you. Have a great evening in London. Have a great afternoon here. And I hope to see you all down the road.